What is easier to do if you're a woman? A couple of people have interpreted this as groping each other, but I feel like what I really notice in men is that they aren't as comfortable with intimacy. Sitting right up next to each other thigh to thigh on the couch under a blanket to watch a movie, resting a head on the other person's shoulder, gently moving an eyelash off of someone's face, holding hands are all practices I've experienced within my platonic relationships with women that I've never generally seen men be comfortable with. Like smacking each other's butts is whatever, but I think it's kind gentle physical touch that is lacking. Yep, 100% this. It was at least 10 years ago, but to this day my best friend still brings up the time she was going through a really depressed patch. She'd spend every weekend staying over at my place, and just lie on the sofa next to me, crying quietly or completely zoned out. I'd put a Monroe or Hepburn box set on for her, surround her with snacks and sit and stroke her for hours. I knew she didn't want to talk, she just wanted to not be alone, and who doesn't like having their hair or head stroked? Anyway, she still tells me how much that meant to her, having that comfort, and I know there are some men who would do something similar for their friends, but the majority would feel uncomfortable, and it's a shame really. When I was in high school I had a lot of female friends and friend groups that were fairly relaxed and chill with casual touch. Cuddling and napping together and such. Was really nice. I moved for university and there I found it impossible to form a similar friend group. The men were much more friend-like and the women were on guard and treated any attempt to be friendly as hitting on them or attempting to get laid. I had multiple friends just up and ghost me one day because they decided they either weren't interested in me or they got into a different relationship. Yep. When I closed for a fast food place I'd usually be the one to go and pick up traffic cones, signs, etc. We had signs directing traffic with these crazy heavy bases. I tried showing my Malay coworkers how I picked up the sign: reach around the base of the pole, lift with your legs, cradle the heavy base to your hip, pull out behind you. They just couldn't do it. They could lift it, yeah, but they just couldn't hold it the way I could. Most ended up just slinging it on their shoulder or dragging it on the floor. One guy hugged it to his chest until he got to the door. Got the job done, but man do I feel bad for them. Work with children. As someone who works in early childhood education I've had the cops called on me 3 times when I took my kiddos to the park. Thankfully I know the beat cop quite well so it has never caused me any real issues, but the fact that people see adult man interacting with children and assume I'm a violent predator honestly hurts a lot. My team is all big, burly, heavily tattooed men, but we are all insanely qualified to do our jobs, but that all means nothing to some random Karen who sees scary looking me give piggyback rides or do a girl's braids. I had a bad childhood and just want to care of the little ones, kindly fuck off. Edit. I really didn't expect this post to get the response it did, so I feel like I should add some more information. I'd say about 95% of the families I work with are thrilled to have a man working with their kids, or just don't really care. So many children grow up without positive Malay role models in their life and are incredibly grateful for the work we do. Men, don't be discouraged thinking you can't work with kids. Most people are going to be quite supportive. Boys need men to show them how to be men, step up and help our little guys. With the right certifications and degrees it can also be a pretty decent paying job with insane job security. To the European saying found the American, this happened in a European country. Stop acting like gender role related issues are an exclusively American problem. It only makes it harder to address these issues. What do the kids think of us? By and large we are their favorite teachers, and since they don't have a concept of why men like us are seen as intimidating, they just see us with a more objective view. They really like my tattoos, and sometimes draw on themselves or put on fake tattoos to look like us. One of my girls was furious with me one day and drew all over arms and face to look like my tattoos and beard and went around like herder, I'm Caucasian delegation, get off the table and get in line. Never have I been so utterly wrecked, I was nearly in tears laughing. When I was a kid I wanted to do babysitting classes and was ridiculed by teachers and that kinda hurt too. I have a kid of my own now, but it was literally just a life goal from that point so I could interact with kids and not be ridiculed. But now I get comments like you never see men interact with kids as much as you do, man, fuck off. This is all I want. I don't want to be condescended every time I play with my kid. Once, I, 30M, Was on break at my last job, which was near a lake, lots of families and people walking, hanging out, etc. I was sitting in the grass on my phone relaxing, minding my own business when this adorable little girl walks up to me, she's maybe like 6, and says would you like to run with us? Gesturing to her friends nearby. I said no thanks. I'm tired from working but I'll watch you. But she wouldn't take no for an answer and they all started running around me. I was stuck in this sticky situation. It melted my heart that she wanted to be my friend, but obviously a grown man playing with strange kids in a park doesn't really fly, but I couldn't explain that to her. I sat there kind of awkwardly not knowing what to do, when her mom finally walks up. Luckily her mom was really cool and jokingly asked if they were bothering me. I left shortly after and said goodbye. Just glad her dad didn't run over and throw me into the lake for harassing his kid, lol. I walked out of a grocery one day and a little girl ran up, wrapped her arms around my legs and hollered "Daddy," loudly. Mom was absolutely horrified and completely embarrassed as the little girl realized I was not who she was expecting, so apologetic, and I just laughed and chatted with the girl a moment. Apparently Dad wasn't far behind me and she was shy over having made the mistake. Completely innocent and cute, but that mother looked so scared and mortified, like I was going to be angry or something, that I can't forget it. Kids are kids. They make noise, they play, they ask questions and make mistakes. Can't get bent out of shape over stuff like that. Yo, for real though. Had a wacko flip her shit on me when I saw a kid tumble into the aisle at the store. Helped a kid up to see if they were okay and see if they needed any help. Fucking wackadoodle comes running up asking why I'm touching her kid and if that's how I get off. I just stood there dumbfounded. Luckily another customer came to my defense so it didn't escalate, but lady was still screaming about how I was going to abduct her kid and I was making it cry. Now I just let the kids be, unless of course the kid's in some immediate danger. I hate people. Since the majority of posts here are sexual, albeit sales. Seriously, female salespeople are on average much more successful than their Malay counterparts. In my industry, industrial sales, it's an open understanding that our typical sales contact, older middle-aged Malay, is much more interested in talking to females than males. Huge sales buff if you're young and at least a little attractive. If you are a hard-working, quick-witted and social young female looking for a high-paying job without education requirements, I would strongly encourage you to look into B2B sales. All of the technical knowledge you can learn on the job. I've never understood why monarchies have generally become patrilineal. It's just logistically tricky to be sure which man fathered which child. Whereas it's generally easier to determine which child emerged out of which woman. The Chinese language even has throwback to some prehistoric matrilineal society. The word for surname is, which has a very clear female component on the left. This implies that at some point in early Chinese writing, people took their surname from their mothers. The paperwork was probably easier that way. Distinguish between colors. I can't find the reference now, but I once read an article where some fraudsters were sneaking into a conference with fake badges. The fake badges had a slightly different shade of color. Women could spot the difference, but men couldn't. Hey. You. Yeah, you. Still using multiple products like a bitch? New from Dr. Wolf Bear, comes Dr. Wolf Bear's Miracle 11-in-1 Multi-Purpose Dude Juice. Body wash, shampoo, shaving cream, conditioner, face wash, car wash, paint thinner, deicer, shoe polish, do I need say more? Now available at your nearest hardware store in 3 manly man scents: tobacco plantation fire, bourbon, and a hard day's work. I feel like we are getting a little better at this. A lot of Old Spice scents actually say things like pine and cedar on the labels. Emo, I'm more likely to buy a deodorant if it smells of something familiar and recognizable, so I usually go with one of those or something that has mint, eucalyptus or aloe. Hopefully the marketing people are picking up on this and make men's products easier to buy. It is a leftover from the Edwardian and Victorian eras when women were habitually dressed by maids handmaiden. Therefore the buttons were back to front to allow them to be easily fastened in the normal way by another person, but then women began to undo their own buttons whilst they were back to front, and it became a habit to do it that way, so no one ever changed it. Here's a fun one. Women are generally better at conserving air while scuba diving. I teach scuba and 95% of the time my female students could stay down twice as long on their first dive than their Malay counterparts. It's a big pick-me-up for so many tiny women who think all the heavy gear is going to set them back from the big muscular guys. Update: so surprised to see this response. Glad you guys think it's as interesting as I do. Looks like some studies have been done on this. There's a Telegraph article behind a paywall that links to the studies, but for more casual reading, check this out: https://www.scubaexperts.com/r-women-better-scuba-divers-than-men. In my opinion, I think the major piece of the equation does have to do with oxygen use being more efficient in women due to sheer muscle mass, but I do see there is a psychological aspect to it too. I see a majority of men take heaving breaths rather than normal relaxed breaths. Because of this, sometimes these guys will be overweighted to counteract the positive lift created by their lungs. This means they're dragging around more weight and thus exerting more energy. Along with that, I tend to see a lot of women relax in the water a lot faster than men do, so they become accustomed to what breathing regularly underwater is like. For those of you who have asked how to become more conservative divers, here are a few tips. Practice buoyancy. The closer to neutral buoyancy you get, the less drag you'll have. As you get accustomed, you'll find you can shed lead from your gear, which continues to make you more efficient. Spend some time focusing on your breathing. For the first few months of diving, my primary concern was my breath and making sure to always keep breathing. You have to counteract the desire to take deep gulps of air and instead try to find a rate at which you are relaxed. Skip breathing isn't the goal either. That will just make you want to suck down more air later as you get exerted by hold your breath. As you get used to this rate, you can play with changing your breaths to change your buoyancy. Relax. Taking it as slow and using efficient movements is going to allow you to conserve air throughout your whole dive. As a bonus, if you take things slowly, you are more aware of your surroundings and tend to see more life. Tons of martial arts throws. Female center of mass is lower down in the body than Malay center of mass, even before accounting for height differences, and it's absolutely crucial to certain martial arts throws. Like, you know that one throw you see all the time in movies where someone grabs a person from behind, and that person just leans forward and rolls them over their shoulder? Yeah, that's almost impossible for most men to do unless the stunt person grabbing them is helping with it. But for your typical woman, it's literally as easy as leaning forward. It takes basically no strength, it's all leverage. I'm a man who practices mixed martial arts, and 4 times out of 5 when I'm sparring a woman and I lose against her, it's because she threw me. I'm a Malay server and I can confirm. The other women who serve at my job make double or sometimes triple my tips. Those ladies get single $100 tips regularly, which I've never gotten. That said, it's not always greener on the other side of the fence. They still have to deal with a lot of harassment and unwanted attention from creepy guys. And don't forget those mean old ladies, they are especially rude to the younger women working there. There are a lot of advantages to piloting high-performance vehicles that come from being smaller. Better strength-to-weight ratios help with G-forces. Having a smaller distance from your heart to your brain makes you less likely to pass out from stagnant hypoxia. And fitting into small places is great for fighter pilots and astronauts. Obviously not all women are smaller than all men, but women have a statistical advantage in this respect. Follow up to that. Back in 2003 or so, when online dating sites were just starting to pop up, I made myself a female account using a random, average pretty-looking girl as profile picture. My cunning plan at the time was to see what kind of pickup lines other guys would send, so I could be different. Boy oh boy, guys on the internet, seek help. That account was deleted after a week or so. The amount of weird crap I got in my inbox was horrifying to say the least. It made me embarrassed to be a man. I suddenly understood why it was so hard to connect with a girl online, and I got newfound respect for girls attempting online dating. This was almost 20 years ago, and I can't imagine it has gotten any better. I'm one of only 3 Malay teachers in my elementary school. One perk is that I basically get my own private bathroom since the other 2 teachers are up the other end of the school. Had a similar experience, only I'm super white. My cousins wanted to go for a girls' spa day and their usual babysitter fell through, so I volunteered to take my son and all the kids to the park for a few hours. Me handling 6 kids. I'm just chilling on a blanket with the baby while the kids run around on the playground stuff. I'm reading a book because the baby is sleeping and the kids every once in a while call out, "Dad, Uncle DBS, look at me do." Whatever they were doing, so I'd look up and give them a thumbs up for doing a good job. Some lady waddles over and asks me what I'm doing. Reading a book, watching my cousin's kids and keeping the sun off this baby. I don't know you and don't want you near my children. Then tell your kids not to come over this way. Easy enough. You need to leave. I can't. I don't have enough booster seats. My cousins dropped their kids off at the park, so I didn't have means of taking the kids anywhere but the park. I'm calling the cops. Okay. She called the cops. Now I don't live in a super large town. It's not tiny, but it's not real big, and I work with a group home that occasionally has problems with our clients and police get called out. I'm on the emergency support team of this, so when police get called, I've usually been called as well. Most of the cops in town know me on site just because of this overlap. The cops show up and one walks over asking me about the sketchy single guy hanging out. I smiled and told the officer the lady is talking about me. His partner was talking to the lady that called and she was pointing at me, and both officers just left when they noticed all the kids' snacks and the fact I was now changing the baby, that I wasn't just some random creeper at the park looking to snatch this lady's fat children from the... Fun answer: it's easier for women to learn how to rock climb. Men will use their upper body strength as an early crutch and muscle their way up a wall, while women have to develop correct form and technique to do as well when first beginning. This leads to much better climbers from my observation. Sad answer: physically abuse the opposite sex. Many times if a man is in a physically abusive relationship, others will assume he isn't or can't be abused. There are numerous videos where actors have shown women hitting men in public, and at best no one helps. Some will even laugh. Switch the roles and everyone comes running to help a woman being physically abused by a man. Binaural hearing. Using headphones, play different recordings per ear which each contain mostly gibberish with the occasional intelligible word thrown in. Women are consistently better at recognizing the words, particularly when two intelligible words are played at the same time. Men have more difficulty with this. The reason this experiment is fascinating and repeated many times is that cis women and trans women perform just as well as each other, with trans men and cis men together doing generally worse. We don't know why. Get support from others. I tend to feel completely alone in my suffering. Most times when I talk to someone, they just want to tell me to tough it out and be a man. Sorry, I'm in grief from my son dying in my arms, and my chronic illness has taken a turn for the worse this year, and I'm just fucking depressed all the fucking time. Yet everyone wants me to continue my life and my job as if everything is honky-dory. It's the double-edged sword of men being assumed to be more competent by default. The downside is men don't get as much help because they shouldn't need it. Obviously this is basically all subconscious, but there are plenty of studies about how even from very young ages teachers help their female students more. This basically trains men to learn from early on that they won't receive help for things. Because it's obviously subconscious for the most part, it's an example of privilege, for women in this instance, where neither side quite understands the other. A classic less serious example is the men don't ask for directions argument. Men have been conditioned to learn that either they won't get help or, more likely in this case, that they shouldn't need it and are weaker for asking. Of course, as I said, this is a double-edged sword, and the privilege for men is that people assume they're competent while women have to generally prove it, at least to a higher degree. Hence men's opinions being taken more seriously, doctors taking men more seriously, etc. I think elderly in general. My mom, years and years ago, was driving my dad to his chemotherapy appointment. My dad was American, my mom is Vietnamese and speaks broken English. Cop pulls her over and asks her if she knew she was speeding. My dad decided not to say anything and see how she would handle the situation. My mom told the cop, in her broken English, "I know see you, I drive fast. If I see you, I slow down." My dad said it took everything in him not to laugh, and when he looked at the cop was holding back a laugh too. Took her info, came back with a warning and just told her to slow down, lol. She's gotten away with many warnings. I presume ride a bike comfortably. As a dude, anytime I ride more than 20 miles I lose feeling in my plums. Also chaffing is a thing. Edit, looks like the consensus is that bikes are bothering everyone in their downstairs. Godspeed to all my leg shaving, Spandex wearing, ball busting, vagina crushing brothers and sisters out there. Never stop writing. Big time. Growing up, most men aren't taught healthy ways to cope with negative emotions and are taught that expressing fear, anxiety, sadness, etc. is showing weakness and you must never do that in front of others. Common reactions to boys expressing discomfort, sadness etc. include, but are not limited to, suck it up, man up, don't be a wimp, men don't cry and so on. A lot of them don't ever realize that this isn't healthy and therefore have unhealthy habits all their life, which leads to men not being able to express emotions properly, anger issues, overreactions, and in some cases suicide.